Since the pandemic, I feel like we've been isolating ourselves in the comfort of our space, and we've just been keeping ourselves busy lately. And honestly, I don't think I minded. The pandemic was a year of self-reflection, learning new hobbies, and most importantly, it gave me time. During the years of self-reflection, I wanted to learn more about my identity as a Filipina Canadian. I had to learn how can I combine these two identities instead of separating them. I was born in Philippines, but I was raised in Canada since I was 8. And I feel like I'm not alone in this. I asked my friends, Carmel and Celeste, executive members of Humber Student South Asian Association, to talk more about their experience in finding identity in a community.
In my head, it needed to sound like hissa, because that means a part of in many South Asian languages.
When I came here, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any clue of what was happening. I was just like, let's go to class, let's come back home. That's it. That was my schedule. That was my routine.
As a domestic student, doesn't have that much touch with her roots. I learned so much about where I'm from and who I am, kind of in that way, and kind of like a different mosaic piece is added to it now because of what I know. Different people need it for different reasons. A lot of students just need a place they can find that is home away from home.
Yeah.
For some people, it's they don't know who they are yet, and they're finding that out by adding this little piece of, oh, this is part of who I am as well.
Being an international student, I'm still like not deeply rooted to my Indian roots. Before I could come here, I was based, like I had grown up in Dubai. So I feel more tied towards being a Middle Eastern kid rather than being like an Indian kid.
Within Canada, like I said, I come from a predominantly white place. And so even in my household, we're not like super Indian or Pakistani or anything like that. We're Canadianized to a very like certain extent. So when I came here and I met so many people, and it literally made me feel stupid sometimes that I didn't know these things. Like when I used to talk to them, especially like in the first semester and we met and everything, like, I don't know this. What are you talking about?
People around me have the same perspective growing up. So they're all learning the same things in the same environment. So she and I have completely different like childhood stories. So that's like crazy. I did not think like Humber would have so many South Asian people who'd be so responsive to these events. So I feel like when we actually saw that our event was doing well, we were like, we did not know this was gonna happen. We were actually really happy.
Positives and there's negatives with it. Like we noticed like there's so much misogyny, there's sexism, there's always something.
From that, I feel like we kind of decided like, okay, let them speak so that we can finally place our views, because we're the vice president and the president. Like we cannot be doing everything. We cannot be always listening to everyone, because then, the ideas kind of clash and they just don't merge well. So we always just let them like give out their ideas, however it is, and then at the end of it, we just like, okay, so this is what we're gonna take away from it, and this is what we're gonna do in the end. But when I saw how passionate everyone was about like, oh, like we need to have it, and I saw like my friends' firsthand experiences where they were like, I'm so homesick. Like, this would be a time that I'm with my family. And I'm like, I get that. Like, that feeling I understand.
Even though it's a big South Asian community here, people are lonely because they haven't connected with any particular people or any particular group of people, and it's just flying by. Like Sel used to say, like she used to come to school, go back home, come to school, go back home, go to work. And they're not able to find that connect with people because there are very cliquey type things going on.
Yeah.
A lot of students have a different age group when they're in postgrad, especially. So they have a hard time connecting with the largely undergrad population who is 19 to 22, and they're not able to find a connect. Sure, Diwali is like we cannot not have Diwali, but the smaller events I feel foster more community, and it gives more chance to actually get to know the other person one-on-one, like sit down, have a conversation. Let's talk about where you're from, what we believe in.
As Carmel said when we were going to start, I want, like, when we leave the college to come back and see that HISA is still continuing, people are still having events. That was the first thing she said. That was one of the reasons she's like, we need to make this event good. We need to make all our events good so that we can pass it on to someone, so that we can always have this like community in Humber itself, so that, you know, because students are always going to keep coming in. There's going to be new students. But this feeling of like homesickness and being away from home is always going to be there. So having this like stationary thing that's not going to change is really going to be like, oh, like there is something for me in Humber other than the education of it.
I want HISA to be more than just parties and little events. I want it to grow into a support for students who are looking for home, resources, who are just not, they don't know what to do, and we hope to help them.
In Canada, it's like you don't have like your roots. I didn't think so much about being an Indian student when I was back at home, because I'm like, okay, like everyone around me is Indian, so it doesn't really matter. But here I'm like, I cling on to that sense of like identity, because I'm like, that is who I am. It's like a different place. I don't know anyone, but that's the one thing that's constant. Like your identity will always like remain with you. So you try to cling on to that and like find pieces of that in like different places, like food and your events and like people, and it's just crazy.
I don't exactly fit into the Indian part, nor do I fit in the Pakistani part, nor completely Canadian. So that's why I created HISA, where I could have a community of my own, where I fit in. That's not anywhere but somewhere.
From Baraka's Race essay, he says, see everything fresh and without form. Then make forms that will express us truthfully and totally, certainly free us eventually. That's what I learned from Carmel and Celeste, is that intersectional identity doesn't need a definition. And just like me, my identity is a new form, and this is just the beginning of my journey.